Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're tackling a pretty big one, the story of Moses.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, talk about a pivotal figure, history, religion, the whole shebang.
Right.
And you've sent over some fascinating excerpts from a Bible study lesson focusing on Exodus chapters 1 and 2.
So that's really where it all begins, right?
It is. And those early years, those first few chapters, they really set the stage for everything that's to come. And that's what we're here for. We're not just going to retell the story. Oh, no. We're going deeper.
We're going for those hidden layers, those aha moments.
Exactly. Like right off the bat, something struck me. The story doesn't actually begin with Moses' birth.
Interesting. How so?
It's more like it starts with an echo of creation itself.
Now that you mention it, yeah.
I mean, when Jochebed, Moses' mother, sees her baby for the first time, she calls him good.
Right.
And that might seem like a simple observation, but it's the exact same language used in Genesis during the creation account when God looks at his creation and says, good.
It's like the author is drawing a parallel.
It is. It's like Moses, from the very beginning, is connected to this idea of creative power. And think about it. His future role leading the Israelites out of Egypt, it's essentially the birth of a new nation.
It is. It's creation all over again.
Okay, so we've got that creation theme going. But then there's that word teba.
Yes. It's used to describe both Noah's Ark and the basket Moses is placed in. There's no way that's a coincidence.
No way. So teba is the Hebrew word for both.
Right.
So both the ark and the basket become these vessels of salvation.
Exactly. Carrying their occupants through dangerous waters to a new life.
A simple basket suddenly takes on this whole new meaning.
Right.
It's a symbol of hope, deliverance.
It is, like a little ark.
And it gets even deeper. If we look at rabbinic tradition, teba also refers to the ark that holds the Torah scrolls.
So the basket takes on yet another layer of meaning.
Right. Moses isn't just bringing his people to safety.
He's also bringing God's law.
It's a foreshadowing of his role as the lawgiver. Okay, mind blown. But can we talk about the women in this story for a second?
Oh, absolutely. We cannot overlook their courage, their defiance.
They are the unsung heroes.
They are.
I mean, think about those Hebrew midwives. Risking their lives to save those baby boys, directly defying Pharaoh's orders.
Incredible bravery.
And Moses' mother, putting him in that basket on the Nile, a desperate act of faith.
And Miriam, his sister, watching over him, protecting him.
Talk about courage in the face of danger.
Wavering. And then, of course, we have Pharaoh's daughter. She finds this baby in a basket. She could have ignored it.
Easily.
But she doesn't. She chooses compassion. She defies her own father.
She does. Which brings me to a question that's always bugged me. Why are Pharaoh and his daughter unnamed in the story?
That is a good question.
Like, is there a reason for that? Could it be that they represent something bigger? Like,
Yeah.
I've heard the term archetypes.
Oh, that's a fascinating thought. An archetype, in this sense, is like a universal symbol or model.
Oh, okay.
So Pharaoh, with his hardened heart, could represent those forces that oppose God's people throughout history. And his daughter, with her compassion, might symbolize those who, against all odds, choose to aid and protect God's people.
Huh. I never thought of it that way, but it makes a lot of sense. It adds a whole new dimension to their roles.
Yeah.
And speaking of adding dimensions, one of the most fascinating things about Moses is how he prefigures Jesus. Now, bear with me. I know this might sound a little technical.
Okay, go on.
It's this concept called biblical typology.
Right.
It's about seeing how characters and events in the Old Testament foreshadow what's to come in the New Testament.
Like clues.
Like clues. So what you're saying is that Moses, in a way, is a foreshadowing of Jesus.
Exactly. And you actually sent over this helpful table that lays it all out.
Oh, yeah.
The parallels are really striking.
They are. So both targeted as infants, hidden from rulers, raised by non-biological parents, and they both ultimately lead their people to freedom.
Right.
The more you point it out, the more it's like, whoa.
And it's not just coincidence. These parallels are deliberate.
Right.
Like, look at Pharaoh trying to kill all those babies.
To get rid of Moses.
And King Herod trying to eliminate baby Jesus. Moses fleeing Egypt. And then later, an angel tells Joseph to take Jesus to Egypt for the same reason, safety.
Wow.
Both rising to leadership after these periods of obscurity. The author is definitely building on these themes.
Yeah. It's like there's this sense of continuity between the Old and the New Testaments.
Exactly.
Okay, so much to unpack here. It's incredible how much is woven into this story. But speaking of things being woven together, what about those encounters at the well?
Ah, yes. Those are significant.
There's definitely a pattern here, right?
Hmm.
Moses rescues Jethro's daughters at the well.
Yes.
And that echoes those scenes in Genesis, Abraham's servant meeting Rebekah at the well for Isaac, Jacob meeting Rachel at the well.
Right.
So we have 3 well encounters, and each one leads to marriage. What's the deal with that? Is it some ancient matchmaking service?
Well, I think those well encounters often symbolize divine appointments,
Yeah.
where God is orchestrating events to bring about his plan.
Oh, I see.
It's a reminder that even those seemingly chance encounters, they can be part of a bigger narrative.
Okay.
So, what do you think the 4th well encounter in the Bible is?
I'm drawing a blank here.
Well, think New Testament. Who has a pretty important encounter at a well? One that changes everything.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about Jesus and the Samaritan woman at Jacob's well? I never put that together. Like, all of a sudden, those well encounters take on a whole new level of meaning.
Right.
It's more than just meeting at a water source.
Exactly.
It's about encountering the divine.
Yes.
And in this case, Jesus offering that living water salvation to people who have been separated from God's covenant,
It's bringing them back.
back into the fold. And if you think about Jesus as a bridegroom and Samaria is the bride,
It echoes Moses' role.
as the leader, bringing his people into a covenant with God.
Yes.
But there's another parallel we haven't touched on yet. It's about Moses trying to intervene in Egypt as an adult. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. When he kills that Egyptian guard who is mistreating a Hebrew slave.
Right. And it doesn't go well, does it?
Not really.
Rejected by both the Egyptians and the Hebrews, they weren't ready to accept him as their leader.
But that's an important point.
It is.
It shows us that even with good intentions, human effort alone isn't enough.
Right.
Moses needs divine authority to truly lead Israel.
So it foreshadows that encounter with God at the burning bush,
Yes.
where he receives his mission. But before we get there,
He flees to Midian. And that's where we'll pick up next time.
looking forward to it.
This deep dive is just getting started.
It is.
We've got so much more to explore.
We do.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the life of Moses. I feel like we've already uncovered so much those early chapters, the creation imagery,
Oh, yeah.
the hidden meanings of Taba, and those incredible women defying Pharaoh.
Yeah, it really sets the stage, doesn't it? For everything that's to come.
It does, and we just started to scratch the surface of how Moses prefigures Christ.
Right.
It's like his whole journey is pointing towards Jesus.
Like a roadmap, almost. Yeah. So beyond what we've talked about, what are some of those key parallels? We were looking at that table from the source material.
Oh, yes.
It's amazing how many similarities there are.
It is. I mean, both Moses and Jesus saved by women.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Moses by his mother, sister, and Pharaoh's daughter.
And Jesus by Mary.
And they both become leaders of their people.
But not without some pushback.
Oh, definitely not. Plenty of resistance and rejection along the way.
Exactly. And both spend time in the wilderness preparing for their missions.
Moses for 40 years in Midian,
And Jesus for 40 days in the desert.
sensing a pattern here with the number 40.
Definitely a recurring theme in the Bible.
So those periods of isolation and testing, they're crucial.
Absolutely.
It's like they're being stripped down, refined
Slow.
for that incredible responsibility of leadership. And even after that powerful encounter with God at the burning bush, when Moses goes back to Egypt, he still faces resistance.
Right.
He tries to intervene between those 2 Hebrews who are fighting. And one of them basically says, "Who are you to tell us what to do?"
Who made you a prince and a judge over us? That's the line.
It is. And it really makes you think, true leadership, it's not just about stepping up. It's about a deeper authority.
Exactly. It's not just about taking charge. It requires a mandate from God himself.
Which, of course, is exactly what Moses receives at the burning bush.
Right. The name of God Yahweh and the mission.
Go back to Egypt. Demand the release of your people.
Such a turning point.
Talk about a life change. From a fugitive running from his past.
To God's chosen liberator.
But even with his divine calling, he doesn't just blindly obey, does he?
Oh, no.
He questions God.
He does.
He expresses his doubts and
His
fear.
inadequacies, even?
Right? I mean, who wouldn't be a little hesitant
Mm-hmm.
faced with a task that monumental?
It's relatable.
It is. It makes him more human.
Absolutely. He's not a superhero. Just a man wrestling with an extraordinary calling.
Strong and vulnerable.
Yes.
Capable of incredible leadership.
But also prone to doubt, to frustration, even anger.
Which brings me to something that's always bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
The whole Moses killing the Egyptian guard.
Ah, yes.
It seems so out of character,
It's definitely a complex moment.
especially considering his future role, as a lawgiver.
It's generated a lot of discussion over the centuries.
It has.
Some see it as a righteous act,
Right.
defending the oppressed.
Right.
Others see it as impulsive, a sign of his flawed humanity.
And the source we're looking at, it's pretty clear. This act was not morally justified.
Not at all. It's not something to be glorified
No, it's not.
or excused.
It's a reminder that even those chosen by God aren't perfect,
They make mistakes. They struggle.
which honestly is kind of comforting, isn't it?
It is. We're all human.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
Not even Moses.
Not even Moses.
It makes him more relatable.
Exactly.
But it does raise some questions about leadership, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Is it about always being right, always making the perfect choice?
Or is it more about
Humility,
owning your weaknesses
relying on God.
to help you make those tough calls?
That's the kind of leader Moses becomes.
Right. He's constantly evolving,
Yeah.
learning, growing.
Transforming.
And that journey, it kind of mirrors the journey of the Israelites, doesn't it?
You're exactly right.
I mean, they go from slavery to freedom.
But it's not a straight line.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
There are setbacks. There are challenges.
And Moses embodies that.
He becomes a symbol of hope,
He does.
a testament to the power of faith.
Even in the face of immense challenges. And that transformation, it's not just about outward circumstances, it's internal.
It's deep.
It is. That time in Midian, it's not just about hiding from Pharaoh.
It's about reconnecting with himself,
Yeah.
with his heritage, with God.
Yes.
It's like he's shedding those old layers, stripping away false identities.
And finally hearing God's voice.
In the quiet of the wilderness,
Yes.
powerful imagery makes you think maybe we need to unplug from the noise sometimes.
To really hear God's call.
And that call for Moses is to lead his people out of bondage. But it's not easy. There are plagues. There's resistance.
Fear.
It's a messy journey.
The journey of faith is rarely straightforward.
It's complicated. It tests your resolve.
But it's about trust.
Trusting God, even when you're scared.
And that's where the Red Sea crossing comes in.
Oh.
Talk about a powerful symbol
The ultimate test of faith.
and an undeniable display of God's power.
I can't even imagine witnessing that.
It must have been incredible.
Those waters divide.
Pharaoh's army right behind you.
It's more than just a physical escape, though, isn't it?
Right. It's spiritual liberation,
From death to life.
the birth of a nation, a new way of relating to God.
And it's all made possible through the leadership of Moses.
A man who has gone through such a profound transformation.
It's incredible how much depth there is to this story.
I know, right?
And we've only just scratched the surface.
You got so much more to cover.
I know. We still have the giving of the law at Mount Sinai that's next.
And all that follows.
Moses as a lawgiver, a mediator. We're back. Still diving deep into the life of Moses. And man, what a story.
It's pretty epic, isn't it?
I mean, those parallels to Jesus, those well encounters.
The hidden symbolism, it's all connected.
It is. And now Moses has his mission, no more running. He's heading back to Egypt
To face Pharaoh.
to demand the release of his people. And then we get to those plagues.
Oh, yeah. Things get real.
They do. And it's more than just special effects, right? There's real meaning behind them.
It's a challenge to Pharaoh's authority and to the Egyptian gods themselves.
God showing up big time.
Yeah, it's a power play.
I remember reading that some early church fathers saw that first plague, the water turning to blood, as a direct response to what Pharaoh did, ordering those Hebrew babies to be drowned.
It's like poetic justice.
It is. God sees, God responds.
Absolutely.
And with each plague, the power of Yahweh is undeniable.
Right.
It's a showdown.
It is. The God of Israel versus everything that stands against him.
But it's also a test for the Israelites.
Oh, yeah. Stuck in the middle.
Oh, right. Because even after those plagues, they still complain. They want to go back to Egypt.
It's crazy, right?
It shows how hard it is to let go of that slave mentality.
To embrace true freedom.
Even when it's right there in front of you. It's a human struggle.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Sometimes it's easier to cling to what's familiar, even if it's hurting you.
Than to step out in faith.
Exactly. And that's where Moses, as a mediator, becomes so important.
Right.
He's standing between God and the people,
Interpreting God's will.
encouraging them, guiding them.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do it alone, right?
No, he has Aaron, his brother,
To help him communicate God's message.
and Miriam, their sister,
Leading the women.
in songs of praise.
It's a team effort.
It is. Even the greatest leaders need support.
They do. And then the parting of the Red Sea,
Oh, come
the
on.
ultimate test of faith.
And talk about God flexing.
I mean, can you imagine Seeing those waters divide,
Knowing Pharaoh's army is right behind you?
it's more than just an escape, it's symbolic.
It is. Passing through death into new life.
A new beginning.
And then Mount Sinai.
The giving of the law.
The covenant.
Moses the lawgiver.
Right.
It's a lot to process,
It is.
but it's all about establishing those right relationships.
With God and with each other.
A blueprint for a just society.
Reflecting God's character.
But even with divine instructions, there are struggles.
Oh, yeah. Rebellion, doubt.
The golden calf incident,
Talk about a low point.
they reject Yahweh.
For a golden statue.
It's like, come on, guys.
Moses is furious.
Smashes those tablets.
Pleading with God for mercy.
It shows his love for his people,
He's willing to risk his own relationship with God,
to intercede for them.
just like Jesus does for us.
It's a reminder that even when we mess up,
God's grace is still there.
it is. From the basket on the Nile to the top of Mount Sinai.
What a journey.
Twists and turns, challenges, victories. The life of Moses.
Still speaks to us today.
It does. It reminds us that faith is a journey.
Not a destination.
Obstacles and triumphs, doubts and revelations.
It's all part of it.
And ultimately, it leads us closer to God.
I think that's a good place to end our deep dive.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey.
Exploring the life of Moses.
A life that points us toward the even greater story
Of Jesus.
and the redemption he offers.
Absolutely. And remember, these stories, they hold timeless truths.
They do.
They offer guidance, inspiration. They help us understand ourselves.
And our place in God's story.
It's a story that never ends.